The day the town council shouted my name as a failure, I felt the earth itself tilt beneath me. They'd gathered on the cracked podium outside the grain store, lights flickering, a banner that read Future of Farming asterisk, and there I stood, clutching a battered notebook of soil samples. The mayor's voice boomed, "We will not waste taxpayer money on asterisk microscopic asterisk fantasies." A chorus of laughter roared, and my own father, arms crossed, muttered, "You're an embarrassment, son. You'll never feed a single family with that dirt talk." The crowd's mockery was a physical blow. The hum of my heart matched the thud of a shovel hitting rock. In that instant, the world told me I was nothing but a laughingstock, and the soil I loved seemed a wasteland of shame. I left that stage with a single burning resolve. If they wanted a failure, I would become the proof that failure can be fertile. I packed a suitcase of research papers, a microscope, and the stubborn belief that life, even the smallest organisms, could rewrite the narrative written for me. Back in the city, the pointless dirt talk became my mantra. I enrolled in a rigorous graduate program, learning to coax nitrogen-fixing bacteria from the dark crevices of dead fields. My peers scoffed, "Why study microbes when you can sell tractors, but I was already hearing their whispers morph into a quiet voice inside me, "You are the whisperer now." Nights were spent hunched over Petri dishes, the glow of the incubator a solitary lighthouse. Mornings I trekked to abandoned farms where the soil was as hard as concrete, the crops withered to skeletal shadows. I took a handful of the earth, placed it under the lens, and saw a bustling metropolis of life, actinobacteria building bridges, mycorrhizal fungi threading roots together like an underground internet. Each discovery felt like a secret handshake with the planet, a promise that I could coax it back to health. The first breakthrough came on a dusty plot outside a town called Redfield. I inoculated the barren loam with a cocktail of my cultivated microbes, then covered it with a modest cover crop. Weeks later, the soil squirmed with life, its color deepening to a rich, hopeful brown. The wheat that followed rose taller than any neighbors, golden, resilient, and full of grain. Local farmers who had once called me that goofy lab rat stood in the fields, mouths agape, as they harvested double the yield they'd seen in a decade. Word spread, and soon I was invited to speak at conferences, my slides filled with images of thriving microbes and thriving soils. Critics who once snickered now asked, "How did you do it?" I answered simply, "Listen to the dirt." Grants followed, then partnerships with large agricultural firms eager to legitimize a sustainable future. I built a non-profit Rootrise that taught smallholder farmers to transform their own degraded lands using the very microbes they'd once dismissed as microscopic fluff. It wasn't easy. There were seasons of drought where my inoculations failed, labs that lost funding, and a relentless media cycle that tried to paint my work as a fringe movement. Each setback was a reminder of that first day on the podium, but also a fuel for the fire inside me. I learned that resilience, like healthy soil, is about diversity, mixing science with humility, ambition with patience. When the first government-backed regenerative program rolled out, my team supplied the seed, both literal and metaphorical, to thousands of farms across the nation. The soil carbon levels rose, water usage dropped, and the once desolate landscapes regrew with legumes, vegetables, and orchids. The very fields that had been symbols of my humiliation now sang with life. I had turned pointless dirt talk into a headline, "Microbes Save the Harvest." The invitation arrived on a crisp autumn morning. Annual Harvest Festival Homecoming Celebration, Meadowbrook. My heart hammered, not out of fear but anticipation. I was returning to the place that had shouted me down, to the family that had labeled my dream an embarrassment. I booked a modest tractor, loaded it with crates of seed, compost, and a portable lab, and drove the familiar road that wound past the old grain store. The festival was in full swing. Stalls lined the square, children chased ribbons, and the air smelled of fresh cornbread. My parents stood near the podium, their faces weathered but proud in a way I hadn't seen since my teenage days. My father's hand, once rigid with disapproval, now trembled slightly as he watched me unload. I set up a demonstration plot right there on the festival grounds, a square of earth that had been compacted for decades, its surface barren as the memory of my first defeat. With a calm voice, I addressed the gathered crowd. "What you see here is the same soil that once rejected me. Today, I ask you to watch it breathe again." I spread a thin layer of my microbial inoculant, covered it with a mixture of rye and clover, and stepped back. The crowd murmured, skeptical eyes scanning the muted plot. Hours later, under the golden amber of sunset, a faint green began to speckle the soil. Within a day, tender shoots broke through, their leaves shimmering with vigor. By the end of the week, the plot was a miniature jungle of thriving plants, the soil dark and alive. My mother, tears welling, whispered, "I never understood, but I see now." My father, voice thick, finally said, "You were never an embarrassment. You were brave enough to listen to the earth when no one else would." The applause that followed felt less like a victory and more like a collective exhale, an acknowledgement of a truth they had denied for years. In that moment, the past's weight dissolved into the rich, loamy scent rising from the transformed soil. The family's derision had been a barren field. My perseverance was the rain that turned it fertile. The judges, the council members, the very people who had branded me a failure now approached, asking for seeds, asking for knowledge, asking for hope. I handed them a packet of my microbial blend, saying, "Plant this, watch it grow, and remember, sometimes the smallest things hold the greatest power." Their hands shook as they accepted the gift, the same hands that once had tossed it aside. As the festival lights dimmed, I stood at the edge of the field, watching fireflies dance above the thriving plot. I thought of the journey from that humiliating podium to this quiet triumph. The lesson was simple yet profound. Mockery can feed the soil of determination, and perseverance can turn even the most scorned dream into a harvest that feeds the world. Walking back to the truck, my father placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "You've changed the land, son, and you've changed us." I smiled, feeling the warm earth beneath my boots, the echo of countless microbes working unseen, just as I had always known they would. Karma had not come as a storm of retribution, it arrived as a gentle, undeniable bloom. And as I drove away, the fields of my hometown stretching green and gold behind me, I carried with me the certainty that the soil, like the human heart, remembers, forgives, and grows stronger after every trial.